All right, it is noon on the dot, so we're going to go ahead and get started this afternoon. Hello to everyone who's joined in. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's lunch hour webinar on environmental stewardship. My name is Sarah Metzger, and I'm an associate for the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center here at Penn State's University Park campus. We are, just to tell you a little about ourselves, if you're not familiar, we are a team of educators and counselors who are on a mission to increase your financial empowerment. And one of the ways that we do this is through these twice monthly webinars. So in today's session, we're going to look at the tie that binds financial literacy to environmental stewardship and actions we can all take as consumers that are good for our wallets and good for this wonderful world that we live in today. So before we jump in, I'm going to run through a couple of quick logistical items and also give you a chance to introduce yourself in the Zoom poll that's about to pop up on your screen. And it looks to be we've got some new attendees joining in today, which I think is great. So go ahead and let me know a little bit about yourself in that poll. And while you're doing that, let's go on to those logistical pieces. So as you would have heard when you joined in, this webinar is being recorded, which is what we do for all of our sessions. And we post those recordings on our website for you to access on demand. So if you need to leave early today, I totally get it. Just know you can go back and listen to whatever you may have missed. Our website is financialliteracy.psu.edu, just like what you see on the screen here. And I'm also going to send through the chat that link. So you've got our website. That should be coming through. Let me make sure I send it to the right people, right? We've got, oh, there's our listserv. So there's our listserv link. And then also here is the link to our website. Okay, perfect. So you have that. All right, we would love for you to sign up for that listserv, stay in contact with us after the webinar. If you've got questions or you want to know about upcoming events, you can go ahead and stay posted with that listserv. And we don't bombard your inbox, so don't worry about too much coming your way, right? We've got a lot of topics to explore on our website, wonderful resources there for download. We offer as a center a continuum of financial education learning tools. So lots to check out there, but just know that these webinars, they're designed to give you a broad overview of a topic, plus a call to action that you can take on your own. I want you to know though, if you need to do more, if you need more, you can check out our self-paced online learning modules that dive a little bit deeper into this topic and others, or you can make an appointment to speak with one of our financial counselors. Our web-based resources are available to anyone, and our counseling appointments are open to Penn State students, alumni, staff, and faculty. So just kind of keep all of that in mind as we move forward with the content here today. There are a lot of ways that we look to serve you as a center, and please do be in touch if there are any questions that you have after the fact. We want to make sure you have those questions answered. And speaking of questions answered after the fact, if you have any questions here today in the moment, please send them through the chat. There's also a Q&A box if you'd like to submit your questions anonymously. Otherwise, you can send them directly to me as the host or post them for everybody to see in the chat. Totally up to you. I'm going to try to make sure I answer them as we go through the slides, but if I can't in the moment, I just want you to know I will get back to them at the end of the session. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. So what exactly is this tie that binds personal finance and environmental stewardship? Like, what are we talking about today? Really, it comes down to sustainability, of course, sustainability. To give you a definition straight from in-house here, the Sustainability Institute at Penn State, it defines sustainability as the simultaneous pursuit of human health and happiness, environmental quality, and economic well-being for current and future generations. So if you are living a sustainable financial life, let's contextualize this a little more. If you're living a sustainable financial life, you're maintaining a responsible lifestyle that's not going to deplete your funds or damage your financial resources. That's that economic well-being, right? Likewise, in ecology, sustainability refers to this practice of interacting with the environment responsibly to avoid depleting the natural resources of our planet. So in a nutshell, today's session is focused on responsible use and conservation in your financial and environmental worlds, and how actions you take in each can really benefit each other. We've got a two-way street going on here. So let's zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Let's zoom in a little bit more on sustainability through environmental stewardship first. When we talk about responsible use of natural resources, we are looking at how humans treat the land, plants, water, and animals of the planet. And the goal is to really tap into these resources to meet our existing needs in such a way that it makes it possible for future generations to just as easily tap into those resources too. Responsibility, being a good steward, is key here. All right. Now, realistically though, responsible use, striking this balance between our needs as humans and use of the natural resources available to meet these needs that we have isn't always easy. The goal is balance, but it's not always easy. So 2 years ago, I'm going to do a little bit of engagement with you here and maybe just make it a little bit more clear why this balance is so hard, or kind of what's happening when there's this imbalance in place. 2 years ago, the United States celebrated the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. I'm not sure if you all knew that. I actually, in 2020, did not know that. I missed the celebrations, and I totally cannot fault you if you missed those celebrations as well, since we were in the early days of a pandemic crisis. It might not have been at the forefront of our minds, right? At any rate, Georgetown University assembled an article that I recently found of 50 facts about the planet to celebrate this 50 years back in 2020. And I thought that right here might be a nice place to share some of those most striking facts. And I'm going to do that through a poll. So we're thinking about this balance between us as humans and the natural resources of our environment, and how that balance is a little bit imbalanced, as I'm sure we've all heard, right? So I'm going to quiz you here. Take a look on your screen for the first fact. You're going to fill in the blank here. This fact says, on average, a supermarket goes through blank paper bags per year. How many paper bags do you think supermarkets are going through per year? 6,500, 600,000, 60 million. Let's see. I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds to answer, and then I'll let you know if you got it. I was honestly shocked by this. It just, well, I'll let you decide what you think. I was shocked. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, share out the results. So most of us have responded, we think it's about 60,000 paper bags per year. The answer is actually 60 million. The average one supermarket goes through 60 million paper bags per year, which just seems wild and crazy, right? I mean, just like jaw dropping to the floor. Okay, let's go on to the next fact. So speaking of these grocery bags, right? A plastic bag is used for an average of 12 minutes. Not sure if you knew that, but even though it's only used for 12 minutes, it's going to remain in the environment for how many years before it decomposes? 10 years, 100 years, 1,000, or 10,000 years? Now, I feel like after that first fact, we're all just going to be aiming like as high as it goes. Whatever the highest number is Sarah's posting up here is probably what it is, right? Okay. Let me share that out. So most of you think 10,000 years. The answer is actually 1,000 years, which is still quite a bit of time, right? So it takes about 1,000 years before a single plastic bag is going to fully decompose. Lots and lots and lots of time there. Okay, let's go on to the third fact. All right, so the average college student, so any college students in attendance here, the average college student produces how many pounds of solid trash each year? 70, 160 pounds, 280. 640. Maybe these numbers seem high regardless, but I promise you it's one of them. Okay. All right. So most of you are saying 280 pounds. It's actually 640 pounds on average, the average college student. So think about how many students we have here on campus at University Park for Penn State and all of the students that we have across the Commonwealth. The average college student is producing 640 pounds of solid waste. And add to that, that includes on average, 500 disposable cups and 320 pounds of paper alone. I know some of this might be a little bit kind of jarring, and well, that kind of serves a purpose, right? We're contextualizing this. All right, let's go on to this last fact. So in the US is the #1 trash producing country in the world, and I'm sure you've heard that. With a single person, here's the fact that we got to figure out, a single person producing how many pounds of trash per year on average? So you saw what college students were producing on average. Let's think more universally, all folks on average in the US. How many pounds of trash per year are they producing? 800 pounds, 1,200 pounds? Okay. So we've got, I'm going to go ahead and send these answers back out. Most of you are thinking it's about 1,200 pounds. The answer actually is 1,600. To be exact, 1,609 pounds of trash on average per person per year, which, whew, I mean, you know, when we contextualize it even further, this means that 5% of the world's people, right, of us in the US, we're generating 40% of the world's waste right there. Feel free to send through the chat any of your thoughts about some of these Earth Day facts, or, you know, sustainability facts about, you know, consumption and pollution and waste here in the world and here in the US. If that surprised you, join the club. I was shocked as well. You know, I figured the numbers were high, but some of them just seemed astronomical. You kind of really need to let that sink in for a minute, don't you? As a human, you have needs that must be taken care of. I have needs that must be taken care of. The goal is that we are striking a balance between these needs while making considerate use of our planet's natural resources. If you know, receive these numbers and you're gobsmacked and you think, oh my gosh, I have to do something about this. Okay, well, it is up to us to work on striking that better balance, right? You decide the extent to which you build that balance into the choices that you make every single day, in the way that you spend your money on the things that you need. There's this idea out there that sustainable products and sustainable lifestyles cost more. I've heard it, I've thought it plenty myself. So I know that this is, you know, it's a common belief that it costs more to buy organic, these kind to the earth products. But I want you to know that that's not always the case. And my goal is, through this session, to debunk that myth this afternoon so that you can find a sustainable balance that, again, is good for your wallet and good for the environment. All right. So what does sustainability in your everyday choices look like? How do you go green with your money? On the screen here are a few examples. First, you know, when we look at purchasing power here, you wield your power as a well-informed consumer. There we go. You shop for companies and products that share your commitment to sustainability, and you signal to those who don't that this is a priority to you. So they better get with the program if they want to maintain a profit or get lost, right? You wield that power as a consumer. And this is true for your food buying too. You buy locally grown products, and you buy sustainably sourced foods as much as possible, and you shop the stores in your local community that participate in recycling programs and initiatives. You really try to keep your local economy moving and while doing so, you're promoting this value around environmental sustainability, right? At home, you are participating in your local recycling program too. So just as the local restaurants, maybe you're also doing that. You're trying to replace harmful products with eco-friendly ones as much as possible. You are looking to eliminate wasteful use of fuel. And so by doing that, you might be carpooling, you might be using public transit. There are things that you are doing at the home front to help promote a healthier planet for yourself and for others, right? And finally, if you're finally you're practicing these 3 R's. And I was going to say, if you're anything like me, you've learned about the 3 R's since you were a young kid in school. We've got it here: reuse, recycle, reduce. I've always learned the phrasing as reduce, reuse, and recycle. Tomato, tomato, it's all the same thing, right? These are the foundations of environmental stewardship. And so we're going to look at these as a framework for practicing environmental stewardship when making financial decisions. So on that previous slide, some of the things I mentioned, you may do as part of your personal and financial life. You may carpool, you may try to eliminate certain cleaning products at home and replace them with greener type of products. You may do that already. If you don't do some of these things, we're going to dive into why it's helpful and what else you can do. If you do everything that I mentioned on the previous slide, well, let's look at what else you can add into your action steps of, ways to be financially responsible to the planet, right? So taken together, we're going to look at each of these 3 R's separately, but we're going to look at them through this lens of financial literacy and environmental stewardship. So taken together, this looks like creating a budget to meaningfully reduce your consumption and lessen the impact on the environment. You could limit your spending to only necessities if you wanted, right? We're talking about budgeting here. But I imagine that for most of us, life would get rather dull if we cut out spending on all fun things altogether. So in this case, if you're looking for opportunities to reduce spending, reduce consumption, and reduce your impact, a negative impact on the environment without sacrificing your happiness, I suggest you maybe consider some of the following actions to take. Let's say you commute to work, right? Or you're planning to travel for an upcoming trip. I suggest adjusting or reducing your commute by opting to carpool, right? Or use shared public transit, like I mentioned on the earlier slide. We've got trains, planes, buses, and bikes available to us locally here in Central Pennsylvania, State College area, and elsewhere, depending on where we're traveling. I know for Penn State, Penn State offers the cheap and even free at times spin bike share program that you could take advantage of. There's the CATA buses. Some of them are free, some of them are a reduced cost. So if you're a Penn State employee, if you're a graduate student, if you are a student on campus, you may have a reduced fare bus pass. I actually just was looking into this the other day. I signed up for the Ride Pass program as a Penn State employee. It's $21 a month, which when you compare that to the price of gas and how often you may be filling up your car, it just seems kind of like a no-brainer, right? If you are okay with public transit and you are willing to work with the public transit schedules that are out there, right? If, I'll also extend to say, if you're comfortable with it, instead of traveling on a plane or a bus or in your car for a vacation, if you're comfortable with it, consider a staycation, right? A lot of this has to do with our comfort level, right? You determine how comfortable you are in taking some of these actions that are good for the planet and good for your budget, but are within your realm of happiness and comfort, right? So consider a staycation or traveling closer to home. We're considering these alternative modes of transportation. And, coming out of this pandemic, as we're really rounding the corner here, I think many of us have learned and still are in a space where we can swing flexible work arrangements. And if you can swing a flexible work arrangement, so work from home 5 days a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever, that's money in your pocket, money that you're not spending on gas to get to work. Granted, you might be using more of your utilities at home, but there's kind of ways to work around that spending or overspending on electricity and other energy sources when we look to reducing consumption in that area, which we'll get to, right? So I'll also suggest, if you're looking to reduce, cook at home more often, which that's going to help cut back on single-use plastics. That's going to reduce the amount of money that you're spending on food away from home. And, speaking of cooking, I recommend incorporating regular meal planning to reduce food waste. I am sometimes guilty of that. I talk about bananas a lot. Like, for some reason, bananas and we just struggle sometimes. And every now and again, I have to throw out a few bananas. But meal planning, grocery shopping, making a list in advance can really help prevent that from happening. Shopping in bulk is also a great way to kind of reduce your consumption, save on money, reduce on consumption in terms of packaging. You might be able to buy things in one space in bulk and reduce those single-use plastic situations, right, which we try to avoid. And consider shopping for organic products in this thought about food. I talked earlier about this assumption that sustainable living and sustainable lifestyles tend to cost more, and people will sometimes think that organic food is more expensive. It's always more expensive than conventionally grown food, but that's not always the case, especially with more grocers offering generic brand organic products. So we've kind of turned a corner here, turned a page on the affordability of organic foods. And because a lot of groceries are offering these private label organic products, they're not as expensive anymore, which is great. Right? Wegmans, Trader Joe's locally in the area are ranked as top supermarkets for these nice, affordable, organic options. So do check those stores out if you haven't frequented them in the past. Highly recommend it. I also like Aldi too. I think Aldi is really up and coming in its organic food options, and it's generally a better price amongst competitors. So look at all that. Take the time to explore it. Coming back to really quick, that conversation about energies. Limit your electricity usage if you can at home. So thinking about this home space by turning off your lights when you leave a room, unplugging appliances when they're not in use. And I think you'd be surprised how much you might be able to save on your utility bills just by unplugging your microwave, your toaster, your coffee pot, even your cell phone chargers when you're not using them. It could add up to $100, $50, $100, $200 extra dollars in your bank account by the end of the year. And you won't know until you try, right? And if when you're not using anything and it's still plugged in, you might as well just unplug it, right? No harm, no foul there. All right. So now on to the second R, reusing. I probably shouldn't have favorites when it comes to the 3 R's, but reusing and recycling are definitely tied for number 1 for me in my book. In personal finance, you can reuse your own items for fresh purposes or reuse items from others to save money and divert trash from landfills. So lots of opportunity here. I personally love thrifting. I love thrifting my wardrobe and household items. Some of you might also agree out there. And, I feel really good about doing that because I know that the fashion industry is contributing around 10% to all the world's, carbon emissions. So by not giving my money to these companies, by not encouraging them to produce more clothing, I am helping to cut back on that level of pollution or that type of pollution. I know I'm making a positive impact. I'll also say, I think I reckon about 80% of the furniture in my home is what I would call new to me, right? I like to thrift for my furniture too and find things secondhand. I buy a lot of these things secondhand, and some of it I don't even purchase. In fact, I made my office desk from an antique door and hairpin table legs that I rescued from my grandmother's attic before it made its way out to the dumpster. So if you're a creative soul, there are endless opportunities to reuse the products around you for new purposes that you might not have ever thought of, right? And save your wallet all the while. And those opportunities, these things are out there for you. Look around. There's a lot of buy nothing groups I know on social media that you can check out. At the end of each academic year, I drive around the borough of State College and I see all of these furniture items that have been placed out on the curb as, college students are leaving. You can kind of pick through that and find some gems hidden in there if you're willing to. Again, it comes back to comfort. And if that's something you're comfortable with, then do it, right? But let's say thrift stores and dumpster diving aren't your bag. What else can you do to reuse products to save money and limit your impact on the planet? Well, you could bring your own utensils and shopping totes when you're out and about. Some companies you might know offer incentives to reduce waste. Target will give you 5 cents off per reusable bag that you bring and use, and Starbucks will give you 10 cents off your drink if you bring your own mug. And I know that might not seem like a lot of money. It does add up for those of us that frequent those establishments. So do check in with cashiers about discounts at your favorite stores the next time you're out to see how else you can leverage what you already have at home, or this passion that you have, or this belief that you have that we got to be better for the environment. How can you be financially rewarded for those efforts? You may be surprised with what's out there. All right, and finally, we've got the third R, recycling. So recycling is what we do with whatever we are unable to cut down on or reuse. It is the last step before we decide to send something to the landfill. And it's, sometimes you can even trade your recyclables for items for cash, depending on where you reside. So there's some financial benefit here too, but just know it's the last step. Sometimes, I looked at that. We see reduce, reuse, and recycle as kind of this multi-directional cycle of activities. But just know that, at least per my recommendation and recommendations of experts that I've read online, start with reduce and reuse. And then if there's nothing else you can do with your items, look to recycling them. And the good news is you may be compensated for those recyclables depending on where you reside. So I've heard of recycling programs that will pay for your metal goods, your glass bottles, car batteries, a whole car, ink cartridges, electronics, you name it. There's a lot out there. And even if you can't recycle these items, right, or other items that you are seemingly stuck with for cash, there may still be recycling programs out there that will take them for free, and at least then spare you the charge for proper recycling and or disposal. So there are some opportunities here to make money, or at the very least spare yourself from having to spend money to properly dispose of items that you no longer need. I'll give you an example here. I, a couple of years ago, bought an espresso maker so that I could break this chain that was connecting my wallet to Starbucks, to the registers at Starbucks. And I was pleasantly surprised to learn that the company that produces these espresso pods provides a prepaid package for me to collect and ship back the used pods for recycling, which I love. And it's very convenient. And for those of us who are really adamant about brewing our own coffee at home, and we are, excuse me, using these pods regularly, it's a reassurance for some of us, I'd say maybe even most of us, that they're at least going to be recycled and they're not going to be taking up space in a landfill. So let me know if you have any questions about that particular espresso option that I have. I'm happy to share that with you. All right, so continuing on. Now, besides these 3 R's as our framework for looking at environmental stewardship through our personal finances, we can also see things through the 5 core competencies that underpin personal finance in general. This is another way to guide our practice of sustainable spending. So take a look at the screen here. We've got the 5 core competencies of earning, saving and investing, spending, borrowing, and protecting. And here's what we can ask ourselves when we're considering the sustainability of our financial practices within each competency. So when it comes to earning, we ask ourselves, do I share the same core values and beliefs with my work environment or with my company? I feel really fortunate that I get to work for Penn State, as some of you probably do too. And I feel good about working here because I know that Penn State is serious about being a responsible steward of our planet's resources. If you're on campus, any of the campuses, I imagine, but for sure I know here at UP, there are bins for proper recycling and composting everywhere, and water refilling stations in almost every hallway, it seems. It's amazing. Did you know, and I want to share a little fun fact with you related to this. Did you know, beyond recycling, beyond water refilling stations, that Penn State is running a reusable dining container program called PS Reuse in the dining halls? I did not personally know this, and I only just recently learned about it. So this program that Penn State is running, this additional sustainability initiative, it's assigned over 20,000 reusable containers. It's got a 90% return rate, which I think is incredible. And it just makes me feel even better about working for Penn State in this way. I also, and this one's kind of fun, I really want to tell you this. So I also learned that Penn State's Greater Allegheny campus has adopted goatscaping to manage landscaping and vegetation without herbicides or waste, which is cute, adorable, and amazing. So shout out to the folks and the goats at Greater Allegheny that are working together for a better planet. All of this really makes me proud to be an employee here, and I hope that you can find that level of pride in your workspace if you are looking for an employer who shares that commitment to environmental sustainability as you do. All right, now on to saving and investing. Ask yourself, are you saving and investing in environmentally friendly institutions? Many of the biggest financial institutions in our country are vocalizing commitment to sustainability. I see commercials for it all the time. I see about it in the news. Yet some may still invest in less environmentally friendly practices like coal mining pipelines, for example, or oil rigs. So it's important to kind of do our research around these institutions. Here's a Banking 101 reminder. Any money that you're placing into a savings account or into a certificate of deposit in a bank essentially acts as a loan for that institution. So if you want some of your money funding environmentally friendly projects, make sure that your bank values align with your own. So in this case, you may prefer to bank locally, since small local banks and credit unions tend to invest within their communities. These are decisions that you have to make for yourself. You have to do this research to decide what you're comfortable with and where you want to put your money, right? In the same way that you do that kind of research when you decide where you want to work. You want to make sure that these institutions work financial, that they are in alignment with your beliefs. Now, on the topic of banks, you might also consider using an online bank, since they tend to carry a smaller overhead, right? Since they have fewer brick and mortar branches that they're maintaining. You may also benefit from higher yields on your savings accounts there, since online banks typically offer higher interest rates than your traditional bank or credit union. So it's something to check out. And then with spending, borrowing, protecting, am I spending money on environmentally friendly products? We've talked a little bit about that. Where can I shop? What goods can I buy that are good for the planet? Am I deliberately borrowing funds for a specific beneficial purpose, clear of waste? How am I using this money? On my credit card, on this loan that I'm taking out? Am I taking out a car loan for a giant gas guzzling vehicle unnecessarily? Now, if you need a big car because you've got lots of kids or you're hauling a lot of stuff, I get it. But if you're not doing any of that, if you don't need a large vehicle that is a gas hog, are you borrowing in the most sustainable way? Is that purchase sustainable for you and for the environment, right? Things to ask yourself. Protecting, are you protecting the environment as much as you do your own assets? So as regularly as you check on your retirement accounts, your investment accounts, your savings accounts, knowing where all your money is, what all your money is doing, moving it around as you need to make sure that it is growing sufficiently and it's safe. Are you investing that much energy? Are you as vigilant in the area in taking action to positively impact the environment in the same way? Right? Questions to ask yourself. If you're interested in learning more about each of these competencies, so you want to look at all of this outside of the lens of environmental stewardship, but you've got interest in this, I encourage you to check out our other recorded webinars on the topics and our phenomenal self-study modules on Canvas, like I mentioned earlier. All of that is accessible via our website, which I'm going to go ahead and I was going to try and place it back into the chat here for you. Yep, there you go. You can go ahead and grab that there. Lots of good information. This is just a small snippet of how we ought to be looking at these areas of our personal finances and actions we can take within them. But this is just, a tiny piece of our full financial puzzle, or financial picture puzzle, we'll say. All right. So like I said earlier, as a consumer, you have the power to shape the future and define the link between money and the environment. I'm going to say it a few times because that's the point of this presentation, right? You have this power. You can refuse to spend any of your money in an unfriendly practice and instead invest your money in environmentally sound projects. That's your choice. You can demand more political, social, and cultural abidance and compliance with regulations. And you can do that. I think of this phrase, voting with your feet. You choose how you spend your money. And if you spend on products that are not, of companies that are not in compliance, that don't like to abide by the rules, well, is that discouraging them or encouraging them to continue those practices, right? So you vote with your feet, you vote with your wallet. That's a better way to put it. You can invest and encourage you can invest in and encourage alternative energy sources, science-based solutions, ecological monitoring, and adaptive management to resources. You as a consumer and as an investor and as a saver, you hold a lot of power. You hold the power in any and all financial transactions that you conduct in your daily life. So when we think about all of these ways that we can spend our money related to the environment, you have all the control. You can force the balance required to maintain a happy relationship between money and the environment. But again, it comes back to how much do you want to do? How much does that balance matter to you? Personal finance is inherently personal, and your attitude about the environment, it may vary from the person that you're literally sitting next to or people that you know. So you have to decide how you want to strike that balance, right? And now's the time to do it. Now is the time to start. So before we end today, I'm going to leave you with a few other items, action items that you can take to reduce and reuse in a budget-friendly way. So we've covered, I feel like, a lot of ideas, but there really are so much more out there. So let me just throw a couple more your way as you're thinking about how you want to take action to be a greener spender, we'll say. So take a look at this first list. I've got 3 slides of items here. You can scale back on the use of that car, right? You can carpool, use public transit, walk, ride your bike, ride a bike with a bike share program, whatever suits your fancy. Bikes are pretty fun. I miss commuting on my bike when I lived in Chicago. I wish I lived closer to campus so I could ride my bike here. It was such a wonderful way to stay healthy and also free up a lot of extra room in my budget since I wasn't paying for gas and all these other associated car costs, right? Also consider switching to paperless billing. Sometimes you get additional discounts from the companies if you switch to paperless billing. I know that Comcast gives me a discount on my internet because I have paperless billing. Same with my cell phone. I get a discount with Verizon as well. Look to combine errands or shop virtually, right? So when you're scaling back on the use of your car, you're planning, you're mapping out all the places you need to go to run errands, and you're not having to make multiple trips. Oh, I forgot this, let me go back. Or you're just shopping virtually and cutting out the need for a car altogether, right? Consider investing in alternative energy sources, set aside a green fund for new energy efficient appliances. I love this. Every budget should have a component of saving for emergencies, and then maybe even here, saving for a green fund where in the home that you're at, or in this lifestyle that you live, you can look to investing in energy efficient appliances, which may be a bike if you don't own your own home. But if you do own your own home and you want to upgrade your appliances to more energy efficient rated ones, you can do that, right? We've also got here, choose forks over knives, which really just suggests eating less meat. And with inflation recently, the cost of meat has been, it's like astronomical anyway. So you might feel more inclined to eat less meat anyways, right? And then also look to choosing green cleaning products. There's a lot of really cool products out there that come out of companies who are truly committed to environmental sustainability. And you can check that. You can check that out as well. You should, as an informed consumer, which companies are the best companies in your opinion, and who best align with your opinions about protecting this planet. That research is out there for you to do. All you got to do is Google it, right? Some more suggestions here. Keep track of your trash. Make sure that you are trashing only the things that you couldn't, reuse or recycle, and that you're trashing it appropriately. Food waste can be composted. So do that. If you can, or where to go for it, right? Like on Penn State's campus, we have a lot of these bins where you can place your food scraps. You may decide to grow a garden as a result of that, using those food scraps as fertilizer, as that compost for fertilizer. And that food that you grow, you may decide to donate to food kitchens or use for yourself, so that you're saving on your grocery bill each week or every 2 weeks, how often you shop. Look to freezing your leftovers. Use smaller plates so you're eating less, which, it's always nice, these kind of secondary benefits of I'm spending less money because I'm eating less by using my smaller plate. And that's also good for my health overall. I love that, right? Shop locally for fresh ingredients. I just checked out this last weekend for the very first time up here in State College at the Home Depot. They have a wonderful farmers market, biggest farmers market I've ever been to. And I got a whole bunch of wonderful fresh produce there, which I was able to carry home in my reusable bag. And I felt really good about all of that, right? Good for the environment, good for my wallet. Look to refusing single-use packaging. So, when you are out and about, forego buying anything that is in a single-use package unless it's an absolute necessity. Instead of using Ziploc baggies all the time to carry your food, purchase reusable packages or reusable containers. I recently invested in some glass containers for my leftovers and other things, and it's been amazing. I love it. Participate in healthy living events. There's a lot of stuff that happens on campus that promotes healthy living. Take advantage of it here or in your local communities. And these last two, maybe even more apparent on the side of personal finances here. Figure out if there's a way for you to make some money with a green side hustle, or keep a little extra money in your pocket through green tax breaks. So if you are able to remove junk for neighbors, or create a composting service, or sell your old clothes, which you could totally do in State College here, do so and make some money. And when it comes to tax breaks, you can get tax breaks for donating items to charity, owning an electric vehicle, making these home improvements around energy efficient appliances, and other features of your home. If you're doing all that, take advantage of the tax breaks that are out there. Definitely consult with your tax preparer, another financial expert in the field who is licensed and can give you more information about all of that around what tax breaks are available. All right, now finally, a last few actions for thoughts. Try not to pollute water sources, right? Think about where you're at and how you operate with your items and your waste, and where that waste of yours goes, and how that eventually could leak into our water sources locally and beyond, right? When we think about our planet's oceans. So do what you can, right? Pick up your trash before you leave the beach so it doesn't blow in the wind and find its way into the water, right? Opt to carry a water bottle around with you, ditch that bottle and go for the tap water. I love the water filter pitcher thing that I've got at home in my fridge. It does the job. I'm happy to drink my tap water and save money by not having to spend it on bottled water, right? See if there's any leaks happening in your house, hopefully not big ones, but small leaks coming out of your sink. That leaky plumbing could lead to higher costs for you paying for the water that you pay each month, but also, right, that additional consumption is not great for our environment. So look to cancel that out if you can. Run your dishwashers only when in full. Put as much in there as you can, right? There's a lot of water that gets wasted when we're hand washing our dishes. So if you've got a dishwasher, use it, but use it when it's full. Take shorter showers if you can. Live sustainably. Do what you can to have this eco-friendly lifestyle. And I love this last one, plant a tree, which I actually know somebody in our office who has recently planted a tree. I've never done that, but I love the idea of it. And I would encourage everybody else to, when they have the chance, when they've got a house, that they can do that at, right? Okay. So lots of food for thought here. This session was really aiming to put in your hands all sorts of strategies that you can act on to help reduce this footprint, this environmental footprint that you're leaving on the planet for yourself now, for these future generations, your future children, the children of your friends, for years and years and years and years and years. Some of this you probably already do. Some of it may be new to you. Some of it you may have plans for, like let's say you want to buy new appliances for your house, but you're trying to figure out how to save for that. So we have to come back to the foundations, this idea of how do I budget? How do I save effectively? This session hopefully generated some more ideas for you, got your brain thinking about, okay, where do I go from here? And if you know you've got more questions, if you want to explore budgeting and saving and investing further, you can. So I'm going to say again, check out our website. We've got lots of resources. We've got the modules, we've got downloadable tools, we've got other recorded webinars that you can check out. And again, if you're a student, if you're an enrolled student, an admitted student, you can take advantage of these one-on-one consultations. Staff and faculty have an opportunity to take advantage of consultations too, but for something a little bit different, which I'll mention in just a moment here. But as I wrap up, I'm going to ask that if there are any more questions, send them through the chat or the Q&A. There's one that I see in the Q&A, which I'm going to get to in just a second. But before I do that, I mentioned that staff and faculty have an opportunity to take advantage of one-on-one consultations, and that's regarding public service loan forgiveness. So we host lots of webinars at the center. Our next webinar is on Tuesday, July 12th. It's about the 10 principles of financial literacy, but we're also hosting a special webinar later that same week on public service loan forgiveness. So staff and faculty and alumni, even current students, if it's relevant, have an opportunity to come and meet with us around public service loan forgiveness eligibility. And before that opportunity, before that link goes live to make your bookings, to schedule your appointment, we're hosting a webinar. And that webinar is going to take place on Thursday, July 14th at 3:30 p.m. And our director, Julie Heaton, she's going to present on these recent changes to public service loan forgiveness and how the changes are offering increased eligibility for Penn State faculty, staff, students, and alumni. It's about 45 minutes. It's going to be nice and brief. It's going to cover the main 4 areas of eligibility. We're going to explain the current waiver that's out there to extend forgiveness to folks who were previously ineligible for the program. We're also going to take questions. So if you've got questions, come with them. If you're interested in attending, there is advanced registration that you'll need to complete, and I'm going to send the link for that through the chat right now if you're interested in joining us later in July. Okay. All right, so much here. Well, let me also send, as I look to the questions here, my written sign off of thank you for participating, let's go to the quick question. I would love to take up refurbished electronic devices and appliances, but people usually say the appliances or electronics don't work. What a wonderful question, right? Like, is it worth buying something refurbished? Let me tell you firsthand, I bought my window air conditioner refurbished. It's beautiful. It works gloriously in the summer heat. And I honestly didn't even realize it was refurbished. I got it for a great deal, but it's, it looks brand new. The packaging looked brand new. You wouldn't have thought that it had been previously used somewhere else, but it was fixed up perfectly by the manufacturer or whatever third party fixes it up. And it works like a dream. So I wouldn't discourage anybody from looking into buying refurbished electronics or appliances. And if you're a handy person too, I mean, that's more power to you. If you know that you could buy something refurbished that maybe, a little older, has a chance of breaking maybe more easily than a newer product. If you can manage it, if you can fix it, by all means, or if you know somebody who can fix it, go for it. It's like the idea of buying a used car, right? Versus a brand new vehicle. If you trust buying a used car, you should trust buying other electronics and appliances used as well. Okay, great question. Are there any other questions for the group? I'm going to hang on the line to see and answer any, I should say, if there are. If not, grab that Qualtrics link from the chat. Let us know what you thought about this session. Sign up for our listserv so that we can be in contact about future events. And thank you. Thank you all very much. I wish you a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy this fine day if you're in Central PA, and have a good rest of the month of June, since we're coming up on July really soon. Oh, and a good 4th of July holiday. Take care, everyone.